Today I decided to give you guys a review of Nosferatu. This film is a remake of the 1922 film, also known as Nosferatu. The original Nosferatu was more or less a knockoff of the story of Dracula. You could argue just an inspiration, but they basically took most of the major plot elements and tried to make their own story, to the point where that film almost didn't even exist at one point because they tried to destroy all the copies of it. But thankfully some copies survived, and this is a remake of that original film. If you know the story of Dracula, you're basically getting that here. And this remake really is a compelling retelling of that original 1922 film. The film stars Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, also known as Nosferatu, which means the vampire. It also has Nicholas Hoult as Thomas Hutter, Lily Rose Depp as Ellen Hutter, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Frederick, and Willem Dafoe is in the film as well as Professor Alban von Franz, which is basically more or less this movie's version of Van Helsing. The basic premise of the movie shows this woman, played by Lily Rose Depp, named Ellen, who one day in her youth, probably in her teen, is seeking comfort from her loneliness, and her prayers are answered by Count Orlok, aka Nosferatu. A type of possession / seduction happens to her, and years later, when she's set to be married, the presence of Nosferatu returns to her. The basic premise shows her husband going to Transylvania to actually get a signature from Count Orlok because he wants to move to Germany so he can be closer to Ellen. Unbeknownst to Thomas, he just thinks that Orlok wants to move to be more a part of modern society. And Thomas, trying to escape from Orlok's castle, all the while Ellen is being psychologically tortured and possessed to a certain degree by Count Orlok, who wants to seduce her once again. Along the way, Orlok makes his way to Germany, bringing with him plague rats, and it's up to Willem Dafoe's character, as well as Nicholas Hoult, the husband, to try to stop this monster before he takes Helen once again and potentially destroys all of Germany. That's the basic plot of the film, so now let's get into the positives of the movie. For one, the cinematography and direction is absolutely beautiful. The film has a very dark and macabre kind of look to it. Beautiful hues of blue and black and gray. You've seen the type of film before, but it's done to an absolute masterclass here. The lighting is beautiful, fires and smoke and fog, everything he has done magnificently. Even the snow resonates with you. Every scene is like a damn painting. Despite the film only costing $50 million, you'd swear it cost $200 million because it's just such a good looking movie. Another positive would have to be the performances. Not only is Lily Rose Depp really great as the main character, I think Nicholas Hoult does a damn good job, and even Aaron Taylor Johnson does a good job as the friend who's trying to help Ellen as well as her husband Thomas. He gives a great performance and is almost just as interesting as our leads. Willem Dafoe, as always, is great in the film and really brings a great performance as this one character who knows what's going on in this world of uncertainty. But the absolute best performance of the movie is hands down from Bill Skarsgård, who plays a magnificent and haunting version of Count Orlok. His Orlok is basically more inspired by the original Vlad the Impaler, who was the real-life conqueror who inspired Dracula. His look and even his design is very Romanian / Transylvanian, and everything about him is haunting. He's like a monster, but he also has like a certain sophistication to him. And it's undeniable that this is a super transformative role by Bill Skarsgård, and one of the best that I've ever seen the actor do. He completely gets lost in this role, and you don't even see Bill Skarsgård when you watch this film. You'd swear it was a different actor, and it's just magnificent. Another positive would have to be the pacing of the movie. Despite the film being over 2 hours long, when it was over, I'd swear I'd only been in the theater about an hour and a half. It just breezes along. I think that everything in the movie is done at a very deliberate pace, and though it does have kind of a slower feel, it's not a boring feel, and by the time the film's over, you're like, oh wow, it's already been 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it really just flies by. I think most horror films kind of have like a deliberately slower pace, especially of this type, but this one really moves along much quicker than expected, and I had to really commend the way the film moves. And for my final positive, I have to say the themes of the movie are very well done too. Not only the themes of horror and love and lust, as well as death and dying, it's all done in a very macabre kind of way, and it just brings a really haunting film that's something of a romance as well as a horror. I really love the way the characters are handled in the movie, and I think everyone does what one would expect in this kind of situation, and it really is a haunting kind of tale. And the themes of the film really do show flourishes of that very well. But on to the mixed aspects of the film. I'm not going to give any negatives on this movie because I really don't think anything about the film really falls into the negative category, but there are a few mixed. And for one, that would have to be the story itself is very much one that you probably know if you know Dracula. What I mean by that is there are a few surprises in the film, but for the most part, if you've seen Dracula or read the book like I have, you're really going to know what's going to happen in the movie. There are a few surprise twists and turns, but for the most part, it's a straight up story that you've seen before. And it's not really a negative, but if you're going to here expecting something completely new, unless you've never seen Dracula before, you might be a little disappointed on that front. I wasn't personally bothered by this, but I can see someone who wanted something a completely original experience might be a little turned off by that because it is the basic Dracula story you know, with a few slight tweaks to make it different. Another part that I say go into the mixed category is some of the acting, especially by Lily Rose Depp, is very over the top. It's not hokey, it's not like they're overacting, but she really goes for it in some scenes, especially in the possession scenes, and she really gives it her all and goes to some lengths that even seem kind of over the top and a bit silly, but it does make sense for the story. But I can see some people thinking that the choices that she makes may be a little bit out there, but I think it actually worked for the part. But I can see it being a little off-putting, especially during some of the possession scenes, because they are really out there, some of her choices she makes. You could chalk it up to the direction of the movie, but when you see her get possessed, you'll know what I mean. It's really out there. And this kind of goes for other characters too, such as Orlok's assistant. He really makes some crazy over the top acting decisions as well. But it really that's in line with the story. And these are people who are essentially losing their minds, so it does make sense. And the last thing that I say lands in the mixed category is some of the jump scares. Now, the film does have a few jump scares, and I'm not against jump scares or even hate them for that matter, but I think they have been overused in more recent horror movies. Here they're used to a pretty organic degree. Like whenever there is one, it feels necessary, and they never really feel cheap. For the most part, the jump scares work very well, but there just are a few that are maybe, a bit misplaced. Another part of the mixed aspect that I would have to say is the only thing I didn't quite get about the film was the beginning of the film. She prays for someone to help her with her loneliness and her sense of longing, and Nosferatu answers. But in the film, it does show that she has a very good friend who she's been friends with for some time. Now, maybe they weren't friends yet at the beginning of the film, but I don't see why she couldn't have found solace in someone like that. I mean, she's a very beautiful woman. I don't see why she couldn't have found someone to give her some sort of comfort, and she would have to rely on prayer to help her with this. But apart from that, is the only real, I wouldn't even say plot hole, just kind of unresolved plot point in the movie. Because it just doesn't seem like a woman like this would have trouble finding friends or finding companionship. But then again, it was the 1800s. Maybe it was harder for a woman who was of money and class to go out and make friends, but I'm not really sure. But apart from that, there's really not much I can add to the mixed aspects of the film, and there's really no negatives here. I think the film is magnificent. The direction is great. The acting is great. The only thing I think that might bother some people is that the film does have some scenes that are a bit, we'll just say they kind of like allude to potential rape. For instance, Nosferatu's seduction is not really something that the main character wants, but through his possession, he basically makes her submit in order to get what he wants. He basically is forced into it because otherwise she would lose everything and potential death could be brought upon many more people. So it's more of like an ultimatum scenario. But it's all in service of the story, and it's not done just to shock. But I could see that potentially bothering some people. All in all, it's a magnificent film, and it's one that I highly recommend. I'm going to have to give Nosferatu a 10 out of 10. It is the best film I've seen in 2024, and it may be the best one in 2025. I guess time will tell. The film is magnificent. It has amazing acting from start to finish. Great performances. It is just a powerhouse of a movie and the best Dracula film that I've ever seen. I can't sing its praises enough, and it really blew me away. If you've seen the original, I highly recommend it. If you love Dracula, I definitely recommend it. Or if you're just looking for a good, creepy movie, this might also scratch that itch. I thank you all for watching. I'm going to do a ranking of the Nosferatu film soon. That includes the 20s version, the 70s remake, and this remake. And if you'd like, let me know down below what you thought about the film, if you've seen it, or if you plan on seeing it. I thank you all for watching, and peace out.